Let's
I'm not asking for much. Only your soul.
What's up YouTube, it's I with the boat, and today we will be sharing my zero attack Morrigan lockout deck and extensively talk about purple where it sits in the TEPPEN meta and an option for the World Championship 2020 players to consider for reaching to the top. Purple has notoriously been the best color for many metas, seasons, and even won the first TEPPEN World Championship. Purple is known as that color that doesn't play fair, locks you out of the game, and is a game of solitaire, a one-person game. The archetype that resonates this gameplay is Big Resonate. To veteran players now, an archetype of the past. To my own playtesting, Big Resonate is not functional anymore as a ladder deck, but effective as a tournament deck. Because a whole year has passed since World Championship 2019, 4 expansions have been released, and Big Resonate has only gotten weaker as a deck. It still holds the lockout function. I can say with confidence I was the first person to create, play, and share the zero attack archetype, so it's kinda like my baby. It locks opponents out of the game like Big Resonate, but is increasingly more consistent with lower risk than most decks. There are bad matchups, but it's always the random decks that top players don't play that are the bad matchups for the zero attack deck. So I'll be sharing this updated deck with you, including gameplay and tips. Here's the deck list, and let's talk about the concept of the deck. So the concept of the deck is you want to get 3 Ascensions immediately. That allows you to play the most important card in the deck. It's called Swirling Bloodlust. Swirling Bloodlust says, if a friendly units have had Ascended status 3 or more times this battle, give -1 attack to all enemy units. It's important to note that this -1 attack to all enemy units is permanent. And you can only get that ability if you have Ascended 3 times. This was a mechanic that was introduced into the game all the way back in the Force Seekers, and not a lot of players caught on to it, thought it was weak, thought it was like too expensive, but I managed to find a build and a way to make this deck work. So how does this deck lock the opponent out of the game? Well, once your opponent has a full board of units and you take away all of their attack to 0, the way that they are locked out of the game is that number 1, their units cannot deal damage to you, so they don't do anything. And then number 2, your opponent can't play any cards because they can't play units, their board is full. And they can play actions, but eventually those actions will run out, and your opponent will effectively end up in a hand where there's all unit cards in their hand, and they can't even play any more units. You are left to sit there with units out there with 0 attack, and then as the player playing this deck, you can buy yourself a lot of time by just sitting there, go to 10 MP, and then whenever you feel like it, you can start to play cards to try to win the game. And that is the lockout concept. And of course, some of the key cards is you gotta have the Ascension units. Our Ascension units are Jury. This is a secret art version, so if you don't have this version of Jury, don't worry. There is another Jury there. That is the Jury that you want. Then you also have Palumu and Giant Moth. Those are your 3 Ascension units, but you obviously play a max copy of each of them. Because they are 3 costs, that is why we play them in the deck, because they are effective to use cheap to get us that Ascension. Now I do want to make a shout out to Kyle P for giving the suggestion of using Madame Fawn. Now Madame Fawn is in this deck because you can add a action card with 1 MP or less from your deck to your EX pocket, and this ability happens throughout the whole game. There's no conditions needed necessary, and these Swirling Bloodlust will go into your EX pocket. What's nice about using Madame Fawn is it makes the deck more consistent, because this effectively means that you will get to your Swirling Bloodlust faster, and it helps you declog the deck. So in theory, Madame Fawn is a great card for this deck. And there's another card that gives -1 attack to a unit, and that's Glare. This card doesn't need any Ascension, but if you at least ascended once, you will be refunded 1 MP for playing this card. I like to use this in both ways. You can use it as a response or aggressive, but the whole idea is to make sure that your opponent's board evens out. Make sure that, you know, if something has one attack and another card has two attack, you probably want to use this glare on the one that has two attack. So then both units have one attack, and then you can use Swirling Bloodlust to minus all of them by one attack. It's kind of like Tetris, you know, you gotta make sure the blocks fill the spaces. And let's just talk about the rest of the deck. So we have Sweet Seduction. That is a skin hero art. It's actually Temptation. So Morrigan Aensland is the hero, but the hero art that you want is Temptation. I have the special skin, so it's called Sweet Seduction. It's a different renamed hero art. Next up we have Crystal Hunter. The reason why we have halts in the deck is so that we can lock the opponent out from damaging our unit that's going to win us the game. In addition, it also slows down the game for us, so it kind of has two uses in one. Next up we have the Empress Derision. This card is amazing because of how cost effective it is. It is a 2 MP action card that negates, and all you need is to have a unit on the field that has the Ascendant status, and you can negate any action card that's 5 MP or less. Next up we have Revelation. For whatever reason, I don't know if people haven't seen my list, but I've seen other people experiment with other cards, and Revelation has to be the best action card that draws you cards in this deck, in my opinion, because it allows you to recur cards. And the best reason to use this is with Swirling Bloodlust. So obviously with Swirling Bloodlust and Glare, you only have 6 copies of them, but if you have Revelation, I've had many games where I was just able to recur, you know, Swirling Bloodlust and Glare. Those are usually the first actions I use anyways, and then when I get them back, it allows me to make the game more in my favor. So Revelation is a big card in this deck that I love to have. Next up we have Maverick's Memories. Now I like this action card a lot because it doesn't force you to have a ascended unit on the field, but it does have a cost of getting to 7 memory. But with this deck, because we are a stall deck, getting to that 7 memory is not difficult. We have the 1x Pyrobat. This is definitely the weakest card in the deck, but it's in there for being spicy. And number 2, it's in there because if we ever run out of cards to kill our opponent with, we can just use a Pyrobat and then use that as our win condition. It has 4 attack, it has flight. We can use halts. We already talked about the Juries. The Juries, a lot of players might think that the -1 attack ability to this card is important, but it's actually not important. What you really want is to have this as a Ascension fodder for 3 MP. That's the whole reason we play it. The -1 attack is kind of like icing on the cake, but it's never really relevant because we usually want to halt the unit in front anyways. Next up we have Palumu. I love this card to death because it halts enemy units for 13 seconds when it's played. So there's a lot of utility, and also it's our win condition. So very important card in our deck. Next up we have Giant Moth. I don't like this card as much as Palumu, but it is a flyer, so it is a additional win con once we lose our Palumus out, if that ever happens. So it's something that we can lean back on. It is very important to note that sometimes if you mess up with the deck, you just need a flyer. So even people play like a naked Palumu, and it's not going to have agility, but that's fine. And the reason why I bring that up is because with Giant Moth does not inherently have flight. You have to ascend to get that flight. And that'll be a mistake that players could potentially make, and I just wanted to make you aware of that now. Because even this Palumu here has flight without the ascension. Next up we have Darkhold. Darkhold as a 1x, it's effectively just used to halt the enemy unit for 13 seconds. This can buy us a lot of time for each of our games coming out. Next up we have Devil Hunter Dante. Devil Hunter Dante is just a card that solo-handedly wins games. And with our deck, once we stall the game or lock out the opponent, we can set up the Palumus, and if the Palumus die and we draw into Dante, eventually we can just play Dante, transform him, and then Dante will get the last stretch of the game out of the way. Next up, we have Earth Mother's Magnetism. Earth Mother's Magnetism is overlooked, might be underestimated. For me, I like it as a spicy card because there's a couple uses. So number one, it makes your win condition stronger. Number two, it's a 6 mana Swirling Bloodlust. So it's another way for us to get a Swirling Bloodlust ability on the field. I've liked having it in my deck because there were times where I would, minus attack on everything, and then the one card in my hand was Earth Mother's Magnetism, and if they all had one attack, then I would just use Earth Mother's Magnetism, take out their attack, and then that would lock my opponent out of the game. So for 6 MP, locking your opponent out of the game, that's beautiful. And that's the deck. So here's the QR code, and we're gonna head into some games.
You're mine now.
Out of my way!
Alright, looks like we're playing against an Ultimate Weapon Jill. This will be a great practice for the deck. I mulliganed our first hand because we didn't have a flyer, I guess. We did have the jury, but with jury, because she's not a flyer, she usually trades out very quickly. Oh, I should have played the jury there, because you usually want to end up on a flyer. So I did make a play mistake. What I should have done was Madam Fawn, jury, and then Giant Moth. But we didn't do that, but we're not gonna freak out. Just gonna wait it out and hopefully draw into another flyer. We draw into another flyer, that's great, and we did, nice. So we have the 3 Ascension, we can start minusing attack.
Just accept it, please.
And I'm actually going to use Earth Mothers here, because that makes us into a way bigger threat. Usually you don't get this option, but it just seemed to pan out very well for us.
Time for my secret weapon.
That's
You'll
not good.
Feel it in the morning.
So what they did was they explored with their hero art, and of course that's Secret Jill. So that Secret Jill is gonna get pretty big. And I made a big mistake. But that is okay, because I can sit here and wait till 10 mana, assuming they don't have any more action cards. So this is the lockout. All their units are 0 attack, they can't really do anything here. Because top has the highest health, has 0 attack, and doesn't have Veil, putting a unit on top makes the most sense. I am going to use these, even though using these don't gain me a lot of value because nothing's going on. It is the weakest card in my hand because I'd rather have the halts to make my units stay alive. And I'd rather have the Swirling Bloodlust because those are way more cost effective.
What a surprise for you.
And there you have it, see? We played 2 cards and we drew into 2 units, so once we go into 10 MP, I'll start playing cards again. And that's the luxury of this deck. When you lock out the opponent, you have the luxury of going back to 10 MP every time. And now what I can do is, because the other lanes are locked out, I can just halt the Zeku repeatedly. But I actually don't even have to do that because it has 10 life and it's only ever going to take 1 damage off of Palumi. Let's see. I do have to play 2 more cards to get Maverick's Memories as a negate. So I think I'm actually going to do that.
That's nice.
Because by doing that and having the negate set up, if something weird were to ever happen, like, I don't know, they played an Ascension unit, then I would have the negate, in case they drew into an action card right after. But I actually don't have to do anything here.
So,
I can just sit out the rest of the game.
But I'm still in it.
And that's the lockout deck. You know, even I can just sit here. I could play cards too. But it just makes more sense to not play any cards. I don't know if this is gonna convince him that it's over.
do you find me attractive? Close your eyes. Sweet dreams. You're mine now.
Target acquired.
Oh, this is a great hand. Normally I'm not comfortable with that many swirling bloodlusts, but because we have a guaranteed amount of 2 ascensions, this is great. All we need to do is just draw into one more ascension unit and we are good to go. So the ideal play is Madame Fawn, Jury, then Palumu. It doesn't really matter how we do it. Nice. So we did it right after we played the Morph Moth, and we got the ability. Their deck is jank. Their deck is actually jank. What does it say? Attacking. Oh, okay. Alright, so this Lumine is actually bad news for us.
Playtime's over.
I can negate that to -1 attack. It's actually not worth because I have so many rolling bloodlust. I'd rather save the negates for something else. But I should use my Palumu ASAP. I want to wait for them to play more units. Unfortunately, that Lumine is going to kill my Palumu eventually. But that's fine.
Time to finish this. I'll choose my own destiny.
How's this?
Now I got you.
I actually really don't like that.
How's this?
The +1/+1 went into the Morph Moth.
Playtime's over.
Ooh. That's really rough, but I don't have any negates.
That's nice.
Playtime's over.
Sure, we'll halt.
That's nice. That's nice.
We're gonna use Revelation, and you want to pay attention to the most right card in the hand. So we drew into the Glare, but we actually got back Crystal Hunter from our grave. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the 1 damage.
Surprise for you.
What's nice about this Lumine is that its ability only triggers on enemy units. I do need a draw, so we might as well halt this.
This.
And once we get to 10 mana, we can fly over the Jagras. Right now, the only thing that's showing any type of lethal damage is this Giant Moth. But that's okay, that's the point of the deck. We locked out 2 of the lanes. I'm gonna let this attack line hit first before I play a card. And then there we go. Now we have 2 negates. And I'm actually going to do this
This.
to minus the attack, but also gain the toughness on our card because it gives bonus. So he hasn't actually played any type of card, so using that card does nothing. It only works when you have played at least an additional action card in front of it.
I'll choose my own destiny.
Oh shoot, they have a full team of flyers. I'm gonna go ahead and halt these
Do you find me attractive?
with our hero art so we can buy ourselves time. But I do think we are in a good spot. I think we're in a good spot. I need to get rid of this Crystal Hunter so I can use Revelation again. But this Paluma also has to die.
Now I got you.
I'm gonna go ahead and halt this.
Now I got you.
So he has played an additional card, so that is active. I'm going to negate it so I don't lose my card. It is a 5/7. A 5/7 is a pretty good unit.
Don't you know who I am?
Last warning. Surrender now.
I'm going to halt this again.
How's this?
And hopefully they don't have another flyer.
What a surprise for you.
I will use Temptation here. We're gonna overflow a bit on
Find me
MP,
attractive?
but I'm not really worried about that right now. In hindsight, what I should have done is probably use Darkhold. Darkhold made more sense in that situation. I'm gonna go ahead and halt this as well.
How's this?
Alright, let's go ahead and set up in another lane. That Lumine is annoying. I want to conserve MP here. I don't know what they're saving for. But they could play another card in the middle lane. They're not playing any actions. They have full mana. I guess they didn't. They probably like left. They probably left the screen because they thought they were locked out. But they didn't realize that I killed one of their units. Two of their units now.
I'll choose my own destiny.
Take this.
No action even though they just used their hero art. That's surprising. I am going to try and kill this Lumine again. It is just a very annoying card that you don't want to deal with.
Don't you know who I am?
Last warning. Surrender now.
What a surprise for you.
We actually gained so much advantage with our tactics. Because at one point they were at 3 MP. I'll negate that. I'm actually just gonna go
That's
ham out. We locked them pretty
Do
far
you
enough.
find me attractive?
Need to minus one of these.
Take this.
This probably makes the most sense. So then that way the spillover doesn't kill Palumu and Dante.
I'll choose my own destiny.
And we win.
Close your eyes. Sweet dreams. I'll make you my plaything.
Oh, this is a great hand. Because we're not clogged at all. Because sometimes drawing Swirling Bloodlust early, it is really bad. Even though it is the best card in the deck. But what's nice is we have Fawn into Moth into Palumu. And then these other two cards don't brick us. Not that this deck bricks a lot, but it could happen. I've actually won one game where I had like 2 negates, 2 Swirling Bloodlust, and only like 1 unit in it. And it was pretty awful. But I still won. You know, even as bad as the hand that was, once this deck gets going, it's pretty good. Oh, this is Plunderblade. I actually don't like playing against this deck. Even though the last time I played against this deck I won, it's still not something you want to see. It's technically a random bad matchup for us. Alright, we got the 3 Ascensions, so time to go all out.
That's nice.
Sure. I'm going to keep minusing the attack. Our Paluma only lives for like, I don't know. Ooh. That hurt. Resetting hurt.
Nice. But it's a
But it's a great card for them. So I don't know how many of you know what Crush does. And I guess it doesn't matter because they killed their own card. But Crush effectively means that my units don't deal damage to their units. And in this case, it makes an infinite lock for them. Because their card can't do damage to mine because it has 0 attack. But then my unit cannot deal damage to theirs because of Crush. And of course we are going to -1 attack this. It doesn't really matter, but I like to do it just because it's kind of clean. You know, just make everything 0 attack. And now we should be able to wait. Dang it. I am going to negate that, but they do have their hero card up, so they get to steal a card. That's unfortunate. I'm going to draw more cards out of my deck. Just to try and prevent them from stealing more cards. That's all 3 of their resets. Wow. Ascension everywhere. We will hero art to buy ourselves some time. I'm gonna minus attack on this while we're here. The reason why I like to do it this way is because of attack lines. Attack lines like to lag a lot. Ooh, that's kind of rough on me. but that's okay. We will respond and use the Crystal Hunter. Let's use Revelation. Hopefully we draw into a Swirling Bloodlust. And we did get one back. And that's why I love Revelation. You know, we've used them and then we get them back. Jeez. How do they have this many cards that just drag out the game? That's literally what their deck does. Although I can't blame them because I'm playing a degenerate deck myself. I really hate that they're stealing my cards and I don't know what they stole. It's okay. I'm not really playing a fair deck either. Let's go ahead and do this. I don't really want to take that 3 damage.
Do you find
Yeah,
me
this is okay to use because I would have taken 2 more damage as well. Just for that. Goodness, 2 hero arts back to back. That is stress inducing. They're gonna -1 attack my card. That's a really good, effective plan that they just implemented. Because I don't have any attack moves. So using my own cards against me is smart. I'm gonna go ahead and do Double Hunter Dante.
That's nice.
Okay, sure. I would have saved that card to win out the game if I was them.
That's nice.
And Revelation came out in clutch again because it gave us Darkhold back. Want to do this?
So, when will you entertain me? So, when will you entertain me?
Do this.
Hi, for a sec. Do you find me attractive?
Locked out.
Close your eyes. Sweet dreams.
And that's the deck, guys. We had a lot of interesting matchup, especially that last one. That last one was a bad matchup. I do think my opponent didn't play optimally because that Paradox actually could have, it wouldn't have won them the game, but it would have put them closer to winning the game. It's because I had Double Hunter Dante that that game was completely mine. Double Hunter Dante does way too much damage. I'm very proud that this deck got some recognition in the community, even reaching the Japan community for TEPPEN. I'm hoping that a player out there realized how strong this deck was, but I definitely did not want to push this deck out to be a Worlds meta just to see it at Worlds. But I do think that it is possible somebody built their own deck or even took my deck, it doesn't matter. I believe for World Championship 2020, if we see any purple decks at all, they'll be either 0 purple growth 10 Kuha, which is a video on my YouTube channel, or it's going to be Big Resonate. But Big Resonate is a very outdated deck. I've seen good deck lists being played out there, except that they're not 100% consistent. You really have to drag out the game, but once you lock out your opponent, you lock them out and then the game is yours. Big Resonate is definitely still good, but the deck I shared with you today is, in my opinion, a better deck because of consistency and lower risk, and I hope I showed that to you guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you when TEPPEN World Championship 2020 premieres.